All right, hello. Today we're going to be talking about logic and fallacies and bad thinking. So I think this is generally just a very fun topic to cover. It's very, very fun because you start noticing it all the time, either in yourself and the way that you speak, or maybe in others and conversations and arguments between people. It's just a really fun thing once you see it. I think it's really helpful for critical thinking, and usually for maybe teens and young adults, they really pick up on this because it's that time in their life where they start having more genuine conversations and arguments with people, and they want to kind of refine their thinking. So for like a high school class or a college class, this is always a really fun topic to go over. So in order to do logic, formal system of logic, right? Generally, you see that in law, philosophy, sometimes in math, definitely in like programming and computers and coding. What we have validity, or if something is valid, and invalidity or invalid, right? So the way this works is you can think of like an argument or like a code, right, that you write in your computer, a line of code, right? Even if it doesn't work, it doesn't do exactly what you want it to do. Maybe I hit the power button on my computer and it turns on the light in my kitchen over there. It doesn't do what I want it to do, but it works. It does something. So it's valid, even if it's not true or it doesn't do what I want it to do. Versus invalid just means it doesn't work. Then, as we just kind of hinted at, we have truth and false. It's pretty straightforward, right? Something is either true or it's false. It can't be both, and it can't be neither of them. So you can think, I am me. Well, I either am or I'm not, right? It doesn't really work that way in logic. There's not a lot of ambiguity. So if you have a sound argument, that's our last one, then you have both a valid argument and everything in it is true, and that gives you a sound argument. But if you have an invalid argument, then it's not sound. Same thing. You can have a valid argument, but if it's false, then it's not sound. You have to have both in order to have a sound argument. Let's use some examples. So we're getting a little lost in the terms here. So most common form of argument you will hear is usually modus ponens or modus tollens. Don't worry about the terms, but you're very familiar with it. Everybody knows this. So Jim is from the U.S. Okay? The U.S. is on Earth. Okay? Therefore, and this is where you get this funny symbol here, this is my conclusion. Therefore, what are my premises? My first premise, Jim is from the U.S. U.S. is on Earth. Therefore, where is Jim from? Jim is from Earth, right? This is the most basic, common argument structure you're going to see. But we're going to see where this goes wrong. This is where it gets really fun. So I'll give you the same exact form of an argument, same exact structure, but we're going to change the validity and change the truth of it and see what happens. So if it is raining, it's wet. Or we can say something specifically. Grass is wet. Okay, that's my first premise. Premise 1. Okay, what about premise 2? Well, let's do the same thing as before. If it's raining, grass is wet. Well, grass is wet. Therefore, it must be raining, right? If A, then B. If B, therefore C. If A, therefore C. So if it's raining outside, right, and the grass is wet, then the grass is wet. Okay, pretty straightforward. Well, I'm going to look outside. The grass is wet, so it must be raining. But what if it's not raining? What if I just threw a cup of water on the grass? What if somebody's using a sprinkler? You never know, right? So it doesn't always work. And this is why we have to be careful with the words we use and the logic we use and the arguments that we make, right? Just because something sounds right, or even much less if it's true, just because something's true doesn't mean it always makes sense or it's a good argument or it's a sound argument, right? So here's where we're going to get into the fun stuff. So one we all know. And just to be clear, these are more rhetorical kinds of fallacies. We're not really going to get into the like pure hard logic fallacies, hard formal fallacies. We're talking about kind of rhetorical uses of language day to day. Everybody does this. I do this. I commit these probably 10 to 20 times a day. Everybody does. But once you're more aware of it, usually you won't commit them as much, but nobody's perfect, right? So straw man. Straw man, there's so many examples of this. We see it all the time in the media, in arguments, or even just in basic conversation, right? So you say to somebody, another word for this, another term for this you might like is bad faith. So if somebody says something, and for whatever reason, I'm kind of arguing against it, or I have a different perspective, right? Well, if you make them sound really dumb, if you make their argument sound really kind of stupid in comparison, right? Well, you can just argue that, disprove that version of the argument, and hey, you won the argument, right? That's not really how it works, though. That's not a very valid way to go about doing an argument, because you're misconstruing or you're changing the truth of what they're saying. So usually you'll see something like, we should do X, right? You saw this a lot about 100 years ago. We should give women rights. And what is somebody going to say to that? Well, if I'm going to misconstrue the argument and argue against it, I'm going to say, well, why do you hate men? Right? Has nothing to do with what it was just said here, and you're kind of just misconstruing it, and you're saying, well, you hate men. Oh, this person hates men. Nobody should listen to them. That doesn't make sense, right? Why do you hate men? As you can see, you're misconstruing. It's a bad faith version of the argument, right? So the next one, other very common that we know, and you guys have probably heard this term before, ad hominem. Another word for this is attack, right? I was going to say, well, Your Honor, the defense is, they're just bad people, right? You know, don't listen to them. Their argument is not worth anything. They're just bad people, right? So this is just your character. Has nothing to do, in a sense, this is the least formal of any fallacy, right? It has nothing to do with the logic. It has literally nothing to do with what's being said. It's just, well, this person making the argument is dumb, so don't listen to them, right? Pretty straightforward. Now, the most fun one, in my opinion, you'll see this a lot. You'll see this a lot in very basic, kind of common everyday occurrences. If you have a spouse or family or friends or roommates, this is very, very, very common to you. The red herring fallacy. Another word for this I like to use is my brother did it. Growing up, if you have siblings, this will have occurred all the time. So somebody says, your mom says, you need to clean the dishes, or you need to clean the room. And you say, well, my brother didn't clean his room. Now, notice, you might think there's some connection here. There's some form of, well, I don't need to clean because he didn't clean and therefore, but no, there's no connection here. You're just making a generalization. You're saying, well, what about this? What about that? Nope, it has nothing to do with the argument. So I think we'll just wrap it up there. As you can see, we ran through just kind of basic ideas of what logic is and what you need to have a sound argument and like good claims and good premises and a conclusion. But then you can also see how it goes wrong, right? Basic argument here. If A, therefore B. If B, then that has to be the same thing, right? Call that affirming the consequent. But that's another topic for another day. So thanks.